Hello and welcome back to Eye on Iowa. I'm Sarah Mueller, a reporter with Forbes, and today I am sitting down with Kathy Barnette, the Grassroots Director for the Vivek campaign. Now, we saw a really intense conversation on Wednesday night during the debate. Vivek was very much attacked for his lack of experience that some people were saying on the stage. I would like to know from you, Kathy, what does he plan to do to address those who are concerned about his experience in office?
Well, one of the things people can do is that they can go directly to Vivek2024.com. And towards the bottom, you will see from day one, Vivek actually brought in a media company within his own campaign. He created one. And he sits down with thought leaders from all spectrums across the nation, actually. And we're actually getting ready to talk to some people who are outside of our country just to get some perspective. And one of the things that he's done is that he has allowed these particular people to come in, speak with him, put it on camera, and he has provided this to the American people for the kind of transparency you do not see in any other campaign as he begins to go back and forth and gaining understanding, challenging the norm of what is the pervasive idea coming out of Washington, D.C. And he's put that in front of the people. And if you go to his website as well and begin to just spend some time there, you will see that and compare and contrast his website versus some of the other candidates who are running the type of specificity that he has provided relative to the other particular candidates. He is very much in line of understanding what the issues are and being able to articulate the various points in regards to those particular issues. I don't think anyone has been as transparent and has provided as much specificity to the various issues that we're contending with.
We saw a lot of discourse between him and former Vice President Mike Pence on Wednesday night. A lot of analysts said the morning after, including one that I spoke to, they were surprised that, candidates weren't going after DeSantis as he is the front runner that was on the stage that night. Why did Vivek spend more time on Pence than he did on DeSantis?
Oh, no, I think Vivek was spending more time casting a vision, unlike some of the other candidates on the stage, casting a vision for where we're going. What you saw were overwhelmingly other candidates spending an exorbitant amount of time punching up to Vivek versus saying anything. I don't think anyone had a comment levied at towards Ron DeSantis. Everyone was focused on Vivek, and the reason that is because Vivek is over the target. Vivek is surging, and what has been so incredible for us, and what I could not wait to see on that stage was I wanted the American people, and I believe there was some number that said upwards of 11 million Americans were watching the debate. I was so excited for the American people to be able to see what I saw from the very first day when it was just Vivek and I, just the two of us walking in to New Hampshire. And you could see it on that stage, compare and contrast. It was Vivek against the entire GOP establishment. It was as if everyone else was either in the 1960s or the 1980 or in 1982 looking at those particular playbooks. And only Vivek seemed to be able to speak the language of the 21st century and to speak directly to what the American people are dealing with and what we're contending with right now. And I think that was such a stark contrast. And so that is what Vivek spent the majority of his time talking about, is casting a vision forward. And I believe what the American people saw, and the reason why we did so well hours even after the debate and going on into today, is because of the stark difference of what Vivek is literally the only candidate speaking the 21st century, whereas everyone else is looking at these old playbooks.
As you mentioned, Vivek is surging in the polls. On stage, we saw them kind of lined up in order with him next to DeSantis, who's polling behind Donald Trump. Who does he see as his greatest rival right now in the race?
Actually, I mean, honestly, as we talk as a campaign, he doesn't talk about any of the other candidates from the perspective of these are my rivals and what do I need to do to knock them out of position. There's little to no conversation about that. Instead, the overwhelming majority of the conversation is to how do I communicate what I see as the vision for this country? How can I best communicate it so that the American people can see it, understand it, and buy into it? Because in order to do what is necessary to turn our country around, is that we're going to have to win by a very large moral majority come the general election in 2024. And the reason for that is because whoever goes into that White House, they're going to have to go with such a large mandate from the American people to do some of the things that only Vivek has been extremely succinct and clear that he would do. Shut down the Department of Education, put our military on our borders facing Mexico to secure our border versus sending our men and women over to Ukraine to help them secure their border. In order to do what is necessary, like not send another dollar to Ukraine. On that stage, on the debate stage, you saw Vivek was the only one who raised his hand to say, I will not send another dollar to Ukraine. And again, this is what I'm referring to when I say everyone seems to be either in 1960 fighting the USSR or in 1982 when Reagan was fighting against Gorbachev. And it only appears that Vivek is in the 21st century, recognizing that we have to take care of our own homeland. Our country is in despair. One of the more poignant lines of the night is when Vivek spoke to Mike Pence and said, "You keep talking as if it's Good Morning America. We're in dark times right now." And I believe every other American, other than those rich men north of Richmond, understand that our country is in a downward spiral, and we need someone who understands what century it is and who has the solution and the backbone to pull us off the precipice.
We are 1 month out from seeing another debate. Will we see the same strategy from Vivek, or will we see a new approach from him on stage?
And what did we see in this last debate? What was the strategy? I was reading some various articles and it was kind of amusing. But I think what we saw in this previous debate is what we're going to see continuously. And it's what the people, especially in Iowa and some of the other states, have seen. And this is a happy warrior. He is, and I believe it's something endemic within youthful people or younger people that they naturally believe their best days are ahead of them. And I think that that is such an infectious personality that the rest of us can certainly use a lot more of, because it is very unnerving the direction our country has taken. And for a lot of people, we see it. We see people are riddled with anxiety and depression. And so you have someone like Vivek who comes out on the debate stage. He is clear about who he is. He understands what it means to be an American. And he comes out with a big smile. Why? Because again, he believes our best days are ahead of us. But he also believes we don't have another 2, 3, 5 years to kick the can down the road. This election come 2024 is perhaps one of the most important elections. I know we hear that every year, every election season, but it is. I mean, think about where we are right now. We have Joe Biden and the Democrat Party, and many even from the Republican Party, as you saw on that debate stage, are sleepwalking this country into World War III. We have some very real issues, and we need someone who understands what those are. And I believe that that's Vivek.
So, the conversation this election, specifically around the GOP, is how to attract moderate and independent voters. I'm here in Iowa, and while, the caucuses are very aimed towards you have to be a Republican voter in order to participate, when it comes around to election time, many voters are independent. How does the Vivek campaign plan on getting the support of those voters and getting them to turn out?
Yeah, and it's what he's doing right now. His campaign is the only one. 40% of our donors are first-time donors to the Republican Party, period. Generally, that number is more, it hovers around 2%, but Vivek is at 40%. That's the kind of energy. Again, if you were watching that debate, it was like night and day. It was as if Vivek was the only one who was living and speaking and living in the 21st century, and everyone else seemed to be in some bygone era. It was night and day. Vivek against the entire GOP establishment. And it was just a breath of fresh air is what he brought. Youthful energy, excitement about who we are as a party, being able to articulate our values with such clarity. I've never heard anyone in the Republican Party articulate our values so clearly, unapologetically, with a backbone. I think that is what the American people need. And really, I think most people are beginning to wake up to the reality. This isn't Democrats versus Republican, or blacks against whites, or gay against straight. This is those who sit high, look low. You remember that song, Rich Man North of Richmond, versus the rest of us. And I believe the American people are waking up to that reality, and they're looking for someone with clarity.
Now, I spoke to an analyst yesterday morning after the debate, and I have now consumed a lot of the after conversations from the debate. And one of the things that keeps getting brought up is the fact that on stage, Vivek said that Donald Trump was one of the best or the best president of the 21st century. And the question that keeps getting brought up after his very complimentary comments on Trump, why is he running against him?
Because he believed he is the best person to pick the ball up from where Trump left it and run all the way into the end zone. We call it Trump 2.0 or MAGA 2.0. And listen, here's the reality. I know people seem to be very confused on why someone would be complimentary of their opponent. But the reality is, Vivek can do this because he does not suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. So he does not feel a knee jerk reaction once he hears the name of Trump to to say something disparaging about him. I think the media and several on that debate stage in the Republican Party is doing a fine enough job of that on their own. They certainly don't need Vivek to pile in on that. And because he doesn't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, he can say honestly that he appreciates what many of the things that the former president Donald Trump did. I believe most people appreciate what Donald Trump did, what he did with the border, what he did in de-escalating a nuclear war with North Korea. That was going to happen, and if it wasn't for Donald Trump, we would have had that. Now you see what happens when you have the likes of Democrats and their ideology having control of many of the levers of our country. They're now in control, and life could not be more miserable for the majority of Americans. When you look at inflation, when you look at the joblessness, when you look at our borders and fentanyl, and the fact that people are just walking, skipping over into our country, not feeling any sense of hesitation to do so. In fact, the cartels have now built a tunnel underneath our border and just driving trucks into it. You see fentanyl ravishing communities all across this nation. Democrats control virtually every lever in our country, and our lives have never been more miserable with them in control and with their way of thinking. Leading our country. And so I think a lot of people are now looking back. I know specifically in the Black community, people are waking up to the reality that maybe Donald Trump wasn't as bad, and I think a lot of people can recognize that. And yet at the same time, we realize that there are some things that Donald Trump was not able to do. We don't want a lame duck president in office. We want someone who has the ability to run and occupy that office for 8 years. And quite frankly, there were things that Donald Trump could have gotten done, did not get done. And so Vivek believe he is the best person positioned in order to win by a moral landslide, by a very large number. We can't get someone in office who can only win by 50+1%. We need someone who has the ability to win by a landslide, so that we have the mandate from the people to go into Washington, D.C. and to get the job done of shutting down the FBI, shutting down the IRS, and many other alphabet organizations, and to give the power back to the people.
Kathy, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.